All right, welcome into our crossover Thursday. Locked on Bears, Locked on Rams. Lauren Cox from Locked on Bears, Travis Rogers from Locked on Rams. Breaking down this Bears-Rams Sunday matchup. Today's crossover podcast again is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play 5. Travis, when you look at the Rams coming into this matchup, what are the biggest things they need to do to win this game?
I think right at the top of the list, and it's something that we touched on briefly, Lauren, at the beginning, is they're going to have to get another performance like they did in the third unit, right? The offense and defense are going to kind of be what they're going to be. Can they continue to be really good in special teams? And Rams fans will know we haven't talked about that in a few seasons. That last year in particular was brutal in the special teams. They were the worst in the league. They were missing PATs. They couldn't kick a field goal beyond 40 yards. Their punt game was not particularly good. They had no return game to speak of in the punt return. They had huge plays in all three of those respects. They got a punt down inside the 10-yard line when they had to have it. They got a big return when they had to have it. Josh Carty hasn't missed a PAT. Josh Carty hasn't missed a field goal attempt this year as a rookie. That's pretty darn good. So I think Matthew Stafford is going to give you a chance to be around the game. It's very unlikely that I think you're going to see a repeat of what happened in Arizona, where halfway through the second quarter, it's just like, this thing's a wrap. It's not going to happen. Hang around. Give your special teams a chance to maybe steal one at the end, get them in position. I think that if the Rams play well in the third phase of the game, they got a pretty good chance.
I will say the Bears have done pretty well on special teams this year. I don't know where you'd rank them, top 15, top 10 or whatever, but they love the rookie punter. Torrey Taylor has done a great job of flipping fields and not giving a lot of big opportunities for returns on punts. And they've been pretty effective in the coverage units, not missing too many tackles there. So if they can break one free, that can definitely be a big difference. Although, week 1, the Bears got a blocked punt for a touchdown that flipped the game for them too as well. So who can find the advantage on that side of the ball will be a big factor. Anything else jump out at you besides special teams here for the Rams to go to victory?
Yeah, it's football 101, right? Don't turn it over. The Rams have only turned the ball over once this season. That's pretty darn good. Matthew Stafford's been really good. They threw one pick. It was in the end zone as a red zone interception. So it was a bad one Sunday Night Football against the Lions, but they have been pretty conservative, or I should say pretty effective when it comes to holding on that ball. So I stay close, get it near the end, put the ball in Matthew Stafford's hands, and if they win the turnover battle, I think they're going to get to Caleb Williams. That one of the things that, another thing that I think to keep your eye on is Byron Young, who's in his second year on the edge, is a lot better than he was a year ago, and he was pretty good a year ago. Jared Verse, the first round draft pick the Rams have had since Jared Goff, believe it or not, a million years ago. He's been really good. I think that he's been one of those guys that you watch the first 3 weeks, and it's one of those, hey, is he as good as he looks? Because if he's on that trajectory of getting better by the middle of the end of the season, he could be a real problem for some teams. Knowing what we know, like you mentioned about the Bears offensive line, knowing that Caleb Williams' has a propensity to hold on to the ball maybe a little bit longer than he might, or he probably should. I think if you can get some pressure from both of those edges, that's a big deal for the Rams as well.
Yeah, I think matchup-wise for the Bears in that regard, the bigger issue on the offensive line has been the interior than the outside. Yeah. But that being said, your left tackle Braxton Jones is on injured report with a knee this week. Right tackle Darnell Wright is dealing with a back injury. So whether they play or not, they might not be at 100% either way. And so trying to get things rolling on up the middle for the Bears will be a challenge. Whereas I think when the edge pressure comes, it's a little bit easier for Caleb to feel that and get around it. Although, I say that, and he got blindsided by a blindside strip sack last week against the Colts. So if you can get there quickly, he's not going to be ready for it in that regard. Because like you said, he does want to make that play and hold on to the ball, but he's been trying to speed up that time to throw every single week.
Yeah, that's young quarterback stuff. We saw it with Goff here for a long time. It's just one of those, that clock in your head. This is, you might be able to run away from somebody in college football. These guys are pros too, and they close pretty darn fast. So I think that's important for the Rams. What about for your guys? What about for the Bears? What are the keys?
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of been the same thing every week so far. Like, can you get a running game going for the first time all season? It just has not been something they can do consistently on the ground. And then if you get the ground game going, can you open up things in pass protection a little bit more? Can that make the job of the offensive line easier to run play action and have defensive linemen have to kind of respect the run before, on their way to the quarterback if they're going to be able to pin their ears back and go get them, that becomes a lot more of a challenge for them to hold up and for Caleb and this offense to open things up. Because I think this Bears defense is going to do good enough. They're not going to shut down the Rams and Stafford entirely, but this is a good enough defense that if your offense can play average, you can win football games like this. It's just been that struggle to get things going enough offensively to even be close to average to win games. So, it's about being able to run the football and not be so one-dimensional. So you don't have to ask Caleb to throw 50 plus times and get 300 plus yards, which is great, but not when you still lose the football game.
Yeah, well, if the key is to run the football, I think you might have an opportunity, because that's something the Rams have struggled with. James Conner had a big day against them. We saw it. Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery in the opener with the Lions had a pretty good day against them. And like I mentioned at the top, the Rams tackling through the first 3 weeks has not been particularly strong. And if that's what they come at them with, I'm really interested to see how the Rams respond.
Yeah, we said the same thing against the Colts last week, and it was the Bears had first and goal, ran it 4 times, didn't get in, including a 4th and 1 where they ran a speed option out of the pistol where Caleb pitched it to DeAndre Swift, and they lost like 13 yards, and 4 offensive linemen were on the ground looking back at defensive players that blew by them. Like it's as disastrous of a run game as you could possibly get. And I think that's why I'm surprised that the Bears are 2.5-point favorites at home on FanDuel Sportsbook. Like, I don't expect the Bears to win this game. I mean, as we get into predictions here, like I'm surprised that they're then the favorites even at home. Like, I just don't have enough faith in this team to figure it out all of a sudden, even though I know the Rams are hurt and I know they're 1-2 and I know they've had some bad games, but like, they did find a way to beat the San Francisco 49ers. Like, good teams find a way to win games, and the Bears have done a better job of finding ways to lose games than win them.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. That the Rams are favored on the road feels weird. That just, feels like a lot with dealing with what they're dealing with. But I think it goes back to what we've both been talking about. They have a good quarterback. They have a good coach. That always gives you a really good chance. So I would be surprised if this was more than a 7-point game either way. The Rams, they have a very early bye this year. They have a bye in week 6. So they need to get through this. They got Green Bay the week after that, back at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. So if they can somehow, some way get to the break at 2-3 with the injuries that they've had, and they've had a pretty tough schedule through the early part of the season, get that extra week, get guys a little bit healthier, start to get some of your players back, because the middle chunk of their schedule is not easy. And so they have to get at least near 500 going into that break. And I think they got a much better chance of winning this one than they do a week from now with Green Bay coming to town. So I think whatever Sean McVay has, he's going to go to on Sunday.
All right, let's go into a score prediction here, Travis. I find myself certainly not taking the Bears straight up here. And I agree. I don't think it's going to be like, a blowout in one direction or the other. But I do think the Bears defense will hold the Rams to some field goals when they wanted touchdowns, but enough of those add up to win the game. Whereas I think the Bears may have a turnover or two that puts the defense in a bad spot and keeps them from scoring. So I'm going to say Rams 23, Bears 16. And it's kind of an ugly field goal fest a lot of ways. And maybe it's 23-9 for a while, and then the Bears get a touchdown late to make it a 1-score game. But again, kind of feels a little bit too little too late, but makes the final score feel like a closer football game and maybe reflect a little bit more of where the two teams stand. I don't know. What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's funny. I think 23 wins the game too. I think that is, but I think it's a little bit closer than that. I think it's probably a 23-20, a 23-21. I think it's probably one of those that's very, very tight. If I'm gambling on this game, I'm running the opposite direction. This is not one that I feel great about either way. I'm staying away from this one, but I think Sean McVay is a much better coach than Matt Eberflus, so I will give him the advantage there. Give me the Stafford experience advantage over Caleb Williams. I'll lean Rams on this, but I would not be surprised by any result either way.